Ladies and gentlemen, football is back. And with it comes another season of the OSAA High School Clips of the Week Football Officials Training Video. As always, I'm your host, Tony Fox, and these episodes are produced by Chris Cadell and Matt Rosenberg. We're excited to bring you another season of training videos. We had a handful of games across the state last week with 0 week, but the season really kicks off this coming week with varsity contests all across this state. And in order to help us get prepared for this season, we've produced this week's training video with that in mind. Let's get to the clips. Well, undoubtedly, we all have a little bit of rust as we start the season. And let's look at the opening kickoff from a game last Friday. And as this kickoff comes down, let's look at some basic positioning. We can see the head linesman starting around the 10-yard line, which might be okay depending on the strength of the leg of the kicker. Since it's early in the season, we encourage you to ask the coach in pregame meetings how far their kicker can kick off. As a reminder, we encourage the wing officials to start 5 to 10 yards deeper than the kicker can kick. This allows you to keep the runner in front of you, see through the runner at oncoming blocks, and allow you to officiate the play much like a running play. And as this kickoff comes down, we're going to notice that the referee is into the end zone. Now in high school football, there's no reason for the white hat to start any deeper than the goal line. We know that if the kickoff breaks the plane, regardless if it's grounded or not, we're going to have a touchback. So white hats, make sure you're starting on the goal line. Now we can see here as well, the kickoff lands deep into the end zone and they allow the returner to come out. This should have been a touchback as soon as the ball broke the plane. Unfortunately, our wings were not in position to be able to help on this as they were further up the field and looking at the action coming down the field. Now, the coach is obviously visibly upset about this. Kudos to the crew. They did correct this. They did take the ball out, and the next snap is from the 20-yard line, and they reset the game clock to 12 minutes. But just a reminder in your pregame meetings, just to go over some basic fundamentals, especially with the opening kickoff. A couple of years ago, we changed the penalty enforcement for fouls by the offense behind the line of scrimmage. And these are now previous spot fouls, except for a couple of exceptions. So on this play, we're going to get an offensive holding call on the left side of the offensive line. And the snap here was from the B47 or the defense's 47. And as we look at this from another angle here, let's talk about the holding foul as well. Now we can see that the defender is taken down to the ground after the tackle by the offensive player. So when we're looking at holding, we want to make sure that there is a clear advantage gained. Now, is this foul at the point of attack? Yes. Is there an advantage gained? Possibly. But the runner is brought down for no gain. So was this block actually helpful in springing this runner for more yardage? This is an example of when it's okay to hold our flag a little longer to see if there's an impact on the play. Since there wasn't, we can actually hold onto our flag. Of course, if the runner breaks through that hole and gains yards, it's okay to have a late flag. But more importantly, we want to look at penalty enforcement on this play. So we said that the previous snap was from the B47. Which means that we should be snapping from the A43 on this next snap. However, we can see here that the ball is being snapped from the 42-yard line, which leads us to believe that this foul was enforced from the spot of the foul and not from the previous spot. And while the head linesman and our umpire are going to march this off, as we've talked about for the past couple of years, penalty enforcement is a crew mechanic. And unfortunately, no one on this crew caught that they missed the spot by a yard. So let's look at a similar play to that one. And what we're going to notice here is that we're snapping from the B14 or the defense's 14-yard line going in. And we're also on position 4, meaning that we're near the right upright. Now, before the snap, we're going to notice that there are 5 players in the offensive backfield, and we're going to get a flag at the snap from the line judge for that. Then we're also going to get a holding call near the 16-yard line. And much like the last play, let's talk about advantage, disadvantage. While there clearly does seem to be holding at the point of attack, there was no advantage gain here. The runner, in fact, is brought down for a 2-yard loss. So on plays like this, it's okay again to hold your flag to see if an advantage was gained. Since there wasn't here, we could support not throwing the flag for this. Now, we did, and now we have an offensive holding call. And again, if we go back to where this play began, we're at position 4 on the 14. So if the penalty is accepted, which it was, where should the next snap be from? So this is a previous spot enforcement. So we should be going from the 14-yard line back to the 24. In addition, when we say previous spot, we mean previous spot, which includes the ball position. So not only should we be snapping this from the B24, we should also be at position 4 with the ball. In this case, we enforce 10 yards either from the spot of the foul or from the end of the run. We're not sure which. Either would be incorrect. So again, penalty enforcement is a crew mechanic. Anybody on this crew could step up and make sure that this penalty was enforced correctly. So now let's talk about a couple points of emphasis for this year that are not new in Oregon. These are points of emphasis throughout the Federation, but something that we've discussed for the last couple of years in Oregon. The first is for equipment issues. And we're going to notice on this play, as the snap becomes imminent, the cornerback for the defense clearly has their mouthpiece dangling from their face mask. And the official here does a very good job of waiting to blow their whistle until right before the snap, allowing the player time to get that mouthpiece put in. However, what we're going to see is they're going to kill this play before the snap, and they're going to let the player know that they did not have their mouthpiece in. Now, as a reminder, players are only allowed to have one mouthpiece. So if this was dangling but they had one in, that's not allowed. The first time this happens, the team gets their one warning, the coach gets their one warning. Every subsequent situation like this where there's failure to wear required equipment is going to result in a 5-yard delay of game penalty against the offending team. So excellent job by the official here, and a point of emphasis that we want to make sure that we're going through in our pregame meetings with the coaches. Another point of emphasis for this year that is again not new in Oregon are hits against defenseless players. And we're going to look at 2 potential examples on the next 2 clips. The first one is going to involve a hit against a defenseless player. This receiver has not had an opportunity to get into a position where they can defend themselves, and we're going to see here a hard hit. Now, the helmet comes off, which in and of itself does not necessarily mean this was a foul. And in fact, the defender uses a wrap-up style tackle, which is one of the 3 ways that we could potentially not have a hit against a defenseless player. A wrap-up tackle, using open hands, or making a play on the ball. Now, this is a wrap-up style tackle. However, we do get a flag from the back judge for a penalty on a hit against a defenseless player. And as we see it from the end zone angle here, we're going to pause it right before the defender makes contact. And what we're going to notice here is that the defender is clearly leading with the crown of their helmet, and they're going to hit the receiver in the head and neck area. So we get a correct call here for a hit against a defenseless player, even though the defender did use a wrap-up style tackle. So good job here by the back judge. So let's compare that play to this one. And as we discussed on the last clip, there are 3 ways that you could potentially not have a hit against a defenseless player. The use of a wrap-up style tackle, open hands, or making a play on the ball. And what we want to look at here is the positioning of the defender as they are about to hit the potential receiver. And you can see here that both players are clearly looking back at the ball. And while we have hard contact, this is not a foul for a hit against a defenseless player. Both players are trying to make a play on the ball, and the contact is incidental to that. So the crew here correctly ruled that this was not a foul for a hit on a defenseless player. Well done. Now let's talk about one of the major rule changes for this year, and that's for forward fumbles out of bounds between the goal lines. Now this clip goes very fast and it cuts off at the end, so we're going to watch this in slow motion. But what we're going to see is a pass that's completed to the offense, and right around the 20-yard line, we're going to have a fumble. Now, what we want to make sure is that the official drops a beanbag. We're not sure if they did, but the ball rolls out of bounds forward at the 15-yard line. So on this type of play, we want to have a bag down at the 20, and then when this is ruled out of bounds, we're going to bring the ball back to the spot of the fumble, the 20-yard line, and we're going to start the game clock on the ready for play. Now I can tell you, even though we don't have the clip here, the crew enforced this correctly. The next snap is from the 20. Job well done. The key with this rule is to remember that this is for forward fumbles that go out of bounds and between the goal lines. Now, this is a play from last year's playoffs, but we thought this was a good example of showing a forward fumble where the new rule change does not impact what would have happened in the past. And we're going to see here that we get a forward fumble into the end zone. So we'll watch that again one more time. Now, just be careful as a wing official for coming in here too fast. But we're going to get a forward fumble into the end zone, recovered by the offense. And we're going to see here that the line judge correctly rules this a touchdown. This was a touchdown last year, and it is also a touchdown this year. We do not want this fumble brought back to the fumble spot because this is not a fumble out of bounds. So again, this is still a touchdown for this high school football season. Well, sometimes as officials, we always wonder when we do test questions if we'll ever actually see a scenario happen in real life. And as some of you may recall from the test this year, we talk about illegal substitutions out of the back of the end zone. And we get one on this play when the offense is trying to run a hurry up and the defense is not able to complete their substitution. We have the defensive player running out of the back of the end zone, and we see the back judge and the referee both killing this play and having a penalty for, a foul for an illegal substitution. So good job by this crew in killing this play. And again, players are not allowed to substitute out of the back of the end zone. The last two clips we're going to look at are blocks below the waist by the offense on the defense. And these are safety fouls. We want to make sure that we're getting these. Now, the first one involves a block by the line. And we're going to see this from the end zone view. This is not an immediate block. If we go back and look here, we're going to see that the offensive tackle raises up, takes a couple steps back, and then cuts the defender low. We should have a flag here from the umpire for an illegal block below the waist. As a reminder, any blocks below the waist must be immediate. In addition, both players involved in that block must be inside the free blocking zone and on the line of scrimmage for that to happen. It's arguable whether that defensive end is in the free blocking zone, but regardless, we do not have an immediately low block, and we should have had a flag here from our umpire for an illegal block below the waist. So our last clip is similar to the one before this, and it also involves a potential illegal block below the waist. And we want to pay attention to the running back next to the quarterback on this play. And we'll get this again from two different angles. And it's really visible from the end zone view. Now, before we roll it from the end zone view, let's look at some pre-snap positioning. So this snap was from the 43-yard line, and we have the referee on the 25. So as a reminder, we encourage referees to be somewhere between 12 and 15. Seems like most referees are between 14 to 15 yards deep and outside the edge of the free blocking zone. So our referee here is deep by about 3 yards at a minimum, and they're probably a little too wide. But let's watch the running back on this play, and we're going to miss an illegal block below the waist here by number 10 of the offense. And this is, again, a dangerous play, a safety foul, and we want to make sure that we're getting plays like this. Well, that is it for the first episode of the 2025 Clips of the Week. We hope everyone has a great season. Best of luck to all the officials out there, to the players and coaches. Hope everyone has a safe season. We'll be back next week with another episode. If you have any clips that you would like us to review for submission to the Clips of the Week, please email them to our new email address. Again, best of luck this week and throughout the season, and we'll talk to you next week.